What's up, YouTube? It's your boy Aries the Ruler, back with another video. Today we are going to continue our houses and astrology series. So the first video we kind of talked about like what the house system is, what a house is, basically how the houses are broken down into the quadrants, how each sign is represented by a house, how each house is ruled by a lord, aka like a planet, not like a god, but more so like an overseer, overruler of that house. Just how you can utilize your houses and how you can utilize your natal chart to kind of be a guide towards you know, your life basically. So we're gonna get into the first house today. So the first house is the house of the self, all about you. This house is commonly referred to as our rising sign or our ascendant sign. So a lot of times you'll hear people say, oh, I'm a Scorpio sun and I have a Libra rising or something like that. All it's saying is you have Libra in the first house. So the first house essentially is the house of you, the house of the self, how you present yourself to the world and how the world sees you. I'm a Leo rising, so I have Leo in my first house. So when people see me, they probably get Leo energy because you can look at the hair. Like I have the lion's mane. People always say, oh, you got like the lion's mane. Like even when I had like a big afro, people used to say that. But I also present myself like Leo-like in a way. I present myself like a king, you know what I'm saying? Like I'm king of the jungle. I'm a leader. I'm a warrior leader, things like that. Not to make it about me though. I kind of want to just talk about some things in the first house. I don't want to make these videos too long, just so I can kind of get as many of these out as I can in a good amount of time. So the first house is ruled by Mars, because it is, think of the first house, the first sign. So Aries, like I said in the houses video, I put a link to that in the description below, or you'll see that like in the playlist if you are looking for a playlist. The first house is Aries, and it goes second house Taurus, third house Gemini, blah, 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 till you get to the 12th and final house, which is Pisces. So Aries is the ruler of the first house. Oh, it's the house of Aries. And the ruler of that is Mars. Mars rules Aries, warrior-like energy, things like that. So if you have a lot of like planets in this first house, that just means you're gonna have a lot of like Aryan energy in a way. Shout out Matt Miller, man. Anyway, like I said though, this is the house of the self. It's ruled by Mars, house of Aries, and this house kind of rules your identity. So your identity is kind of formed based on your surroundings and how you perceive yourselves like within that space. So for me, for example, like I'm a Leo rising, so I like to let people know that like I'm a leader. Like I like to put myself in situations where I can thrive in leadership roles. I kind of think about it like I've always been like a team captain. I've always been like in management positions at jobs, at the radio station I used to teach at. Like I was like kind of the person that ushered people into the radio station and things like that. Like big Leo energy. The first house is truly like kind of just your best offering to the world. Like I said, it's how the world sees you. And you can kind of, like I said, you can kind of look at this as how people identify you as well. So it's like it's your first impression to the world. So if you are, for example, a Gemini rising, people might see you and just think, oh, you're quirky, oh, you know, you're weird. Or if you're an Aquarius like rising, for example, like you might have Aquarian features. Like a lot of Aquarius people I know, no offense to y'all, but they're like very beautiful, attractive people, fair skinned, really not fair skin, but really just nice skin. I don't want to bring tone into anything like that, but they have like nice skin. Aryan people kind of like have bigger heads, bigger, you know, whatever, just because like Aquarius is the sign of like the future, basically futuristic people. Like I think Aquarius people, really all the air signs, but particularly like Aquarius people are like probably the smartest, most innovative people in the world. Taurus risings, for example, are gonna have like bullish features because Taurus is the bull. Not to say like they look like bulls, but you might see like a Taurus, you can kind of see like in their nose, like, or I don't know, I don't want to kind of typecast people, things like that. But yeah, like I said, this is the house that kind of just rules your identity. This house also rules your conscious self. So your conscious thoughts are kind of rooted in this house. So like everything that you like, basically your ego is, I don't say your ego's in this house because the sun is kind of like our ego in a way, but like the rising sign, because it is Aries rule, which is an egotistical sign, you're naturally just going to be more ego. This house is just a more ego driven house in general. You kind of like are always thinking about like yourself and how you're being perceived, you know, in the world, things like that. The next point I was gonna say was this house does rule your ego because of Aries. And what you focus on is mainly partly due to the first house. So like a lot of your interests in life are gonna be mainly because of your first house. So for like I said, for an example, this is a house ruled by Aries. I have a Leo rising in this house. So like I'm gonna be very sports driven. I like to win a lot. I want to coach people, things like that. Like yeah. And then I was gonna say also your physical appearance is key in this house. Like I said, think of big hair with Leos. Think of a Gemini, you might think of like a quirky person. They might dress like, you ever seen like NBA players walk up to like just walk into the games in 2023, they kind of dress. You see people, Russell Westbrook, for example, dressed like a traffic stopper, or somebody that's like a dressed in traffic. He might literally wear a traffic cone, and that's a fashion statement. That's a very Gemini rule kind of thing. Yeah, so like I said, you might have big hair, lavish looks, very attention based. I always say with this house, ask yourself, this house, I would say I meant like, the big question for this house is, who am I? Like, and what am I becoming? Because this house is all about the self. And as I think, I don't know if I mentioned it in the house, in the video before, but the houses have 12-year cycles basically. So the first house, you start at age 0 to 1, obviously, from birth to 1. House 2, you'll start at 1 or whatever. So when you get to age 11, you'll be in your first house year. When you get to age 23, you'll be in your first house year. So think of ages 11, 23, think of what, 35, if you're that old. I'm not that old, so I haven't gotten there yet. But think of how you were in all those years and how like your appearance just kind of changed throughout those years. Like I was growing my locks out. I've been growing them for 6 years now, but I would definitely say at 23 is when I kind of truly started to embrace the locks, and just kind of do my own thing with them. You know, I wasn't as subconscious about how people perceive them because I was just like, you know, it is what it is. Like, this is me. This is my offering to the world. The world better, you know, better love that. Some of the energies that this house just kind of provides, for example, so like this house, like I said a million times already, this house prioritizes the self. It kind of puts the self over others. But as you progress more into your charts, like the first house is the ascendant house. There's 6 houses, and so the first 6 houses are like your personal houses. The back 6 houses are like outer houses, I would say, or like not, well, the interpersonal houses versus the outer personal, if you want to say that. So when you get to your 7th house, it's going to be the descendant. So like you start at the ascendant and you're just going kind of down back until you get back to the ascendant. So the 7th house descendant is when you'll kind of start to prioritize others, and you'll like kind of want to stand out from the crowd in the first house energy. But by the time you get to the 7th house, that's like the house of like marriage, relationships, things like that. It's kind of how like you start to, okay, now that I've gotten like houses 1 through 6 kind of in check, how can I get these back houses and like form my like tribe, you know, in a way. Not to talk about the other houses right now, but yeah, those are kind of the energies that the first house provides. And then the opposite of it, the 7th house, is like the energies that it doesn't provide, because you have to kind of learn how to stabilize yourself, I guess you could say, before you get to like others. You kind of got to make sure you're good. Kind of like that self-love thing. It's like, how can you love others if you don't even love yourself? And not to say like, oh, when you get to the 7th house, you're going to have it figured out, or if you don't have it figured out, you're not going to be able to, whatever. It's like, this is a constant thing. These houses are always working within each other. So like, you'll always get plenty of opportunities to truly embrace those energies. But you could embrace those energies regardless of if you're in the 1st house year, 10th house year, 5th house year. Like, you know. Another big thing I wanted to talk about with this house too was just like, depending on which planets you have in the first house, you could come across like people could perceive you certain type of ways. So like you could be perceived as egotistical or selfish if you have, for example, like I have fire in this house. I have fire in first house, fifth house, and the ninth house. So like people probably definitely look at me and be like, oh, you have a big ego. And I'm like, I mean, I do have a big ego. Like, it is what it is. I'm an Aries sign, you know what I'm saying? But it's like I said, it just kind of depends. If you have, for example, Pisces in your first house, people might perceive you as very mysterious, like shy, quiet. People could look at you and tell like, oh, you know, like you live in a fanatical kind of world, because Pisces is the sign of like fantasy. Anybody can lie, but like a lot of times like Piscean energy is kind of like fairy tale-ish energy, not always truth in a way, you know. And like I said before, although people kind of identify with their sun signs, the first house is really like our true identity, because think of it like this. When you're you're born, when you're born into this world, you are born with your face. Obviously your face changes over time, but like your immediate mark, your first impression to this world is your rising. You could have sun in the first house now, and then that could be like you know, you can look at that how you want, but I have sun in my ninth house. So I already know, like, I mean, I definitely identify with Aryan traits, but I also identify with a lot of like Leo traits as well. So yeah, hopefully that kind of explained a little bit. I know I'm still learning. I'm still a student of this astrology thing myself, but this is just too much information for me to try to sit on. Last thing I kind of want to do is like not put these videos out just because I'm like, I don't feel like I know what I'm talking about. Like, I feel like I have a pretty good grasp of these things, but there are plenty of other people that you could always watch online. I'm always watching people literally as I'm writing these notes. I'm not just coming off the top. I watched plenty of videos, read hundreds of articles, and yeah, just always remember that your first house is your first impression. It is who you are at the end of the day. Truly embrace that energy, because no matter what, like, that is what you are consciously putting out into the world every time, whether you know it or not. So yeah, if you made it this far, I appreciate you. Make sure you like this video if you haven't subscribed already. I don't usually do this, but make sure you subscribe, spread the word. I really do appreciate just everybody that's here, and I really do love to just create content and educate people in the best way that I can. So like I said, if you made it this far, I really appreciate you. And until next time, y'all have a good one.